Run it, baby. Welcome, guys. This is the Grinding for Greatness podcast. I have a very special guest here with me. We've got Richard Hernandez. He is into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He was a competitor. He teaches it. So, Richard, thank you for coming on the Grinding for Greatness podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know we're both busy, but I'm glad we finally nailed it down to today. How's everything going so far today?
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for having me. Hello, guys, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Everything is great. And as you mentioned, jiu-jitsu is one of those things that I found in life, and now it went from being a hobby to now my lifestyle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To make it it has made me certainly now, looking back in years, it has made me a better man, a better father, a better
Mm.
friend. Overall, I have endured the hardness of it, and I think we have become a better person that way.
That's interesting that you just said that because obviously the name of the podcast is Grinding for Greatness, and it's just not
Right.
related to sports. It could be anything. It could be jujitsu. It can be a CEO of a bank. It could be a businessman. Whatever it is. So when you said that, it just made you a better person. I love that. Let me ask you this: what do you think
Sure.
it was about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu that changed you or made you into a better person? Was it the whole mindset? Was it the training? What exactly was it that you credit jujitsu for to make you what you are today?
Well, I think it was the mindset and the constant grit. Um, my career, I'm in the medical field, and it's a very stressful job because
Yes.
we deal with a lot of patients, a lot of patients that are in pain. And it's just like us. When you're in pain, you're not yourself. And
Right.
sometimes you say things you don't want to say. And it's very hard to keep that emotion under control. And before jiu-jitsu, I didn't have that outlet to let all the energy and all the frustration out. So I would carry all the negativity home. And when I got home, I will be very distant with my family, my
Mhm.
daughter, and I will be very impulsive because of the frustration of my daily job.
Yeah.
And with time jiu-jitsu, one of the things that has taught me was to stay calm under pressure. And everything comes with the mindset. For example, when somebody's choking you, so to lock it in a rear naked choke, right? You have to stay calm, keep your composure, and think, okay, I'm okay. Let me escape. What I'm gonna do? You think analytically what you're gonna do, and fast forward all these years into training, I apply the same skill sets to my daily job.
Mm.
And now when I'm at work and I get put in a uncomfortable situation, a very stressful situation, I can apply the same mindset in jiu-jitsu in life. Stay calm, think what you're gonna do, think what you're gonna say, and then just act accordingly.
Yeah.
And then when I finish my job, all that stays at work, all the negativity. So now I get home with a completely new mindset where I can enjoy my family. The same thing as on the mats,
Yeah.
right? Whatever happens during the match, whether you win, you lose, it stays in the match. Nothing's personal. It's part of the grit. And that's the one thing that it has definitely made me a better person overall.
Yeah.
Because before I used to be very impulsive. I would react very sharply to most situations, but now it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that.
Where I tell you what, you just said that, and I'm thinking of myself because I was you, man. Like I would take the stress from work home with me. My family would feel the brunt of it, and that's not the guy I wanted to be. I'm not. I don't want to be the person that people have to walk on eggshells around because they're afraid they're going to say something wrong, and I'm going to just go off on them. And that was me at one point in my life. So when you said that, it
All right.
really it hit home. So I definitely understand that. Now, you got started a little bit later in life than most would. So that's pretty impressive because at the level you're at right now, I mean, you told me earlier before we went on, you were 29 years old. You're only 38 now. That's 9 years of competing, but you started pretty late. Do you think that helped you, hurt you, or either way really doesn't matter?
Well, in my case, I think it has certainly helped me because ever since I was young, I always was competitive. I started with soccer. I played soccer my whole life. And I had an opportunity to play soccer in college, but things didn't work out well for me at that point.
Hmm.
But I always stood with soccer, and one of the things with soccer is very competitive, and it's a very physical sport, especially in your knees. And unfortunately, I turned my ACL playing soccer. And after that, I was like, man, I need to look for something else to continue to exercise. And I took on running. I took on weightlifting at the gym, and those were great. But it wasn't until this dojo that I am now, Carlos Holison, that I was driving by one day, and I said, you know what? Let me stop by and let me see what this jiu-jitsu is all about. And I walk in, I remember very vividly a Thursday afternoon for their fundamentals class. And I came from, again, I was lifting weights. I was in very good shape. And I walk in, and to me, looking at it from the outside, it looked kind of silly. This guy's wearing these big kimonos. It almost looked like pajamas. What are they going to do to me? I can bench press 240, no problem. I can beat everyone there. So I walk into the dojo then, and I did the class, and I remember because we were doing takedowns, and I remember that it was a defense for a rear naked choke. You grab the arms, right, and you squat and you bend forward, you throw the guy pretty
Yeah.
much, right? A judo throw. So I remember, and I couldn't even do that. I remember me trying to hold the guy, lift, and I had no coordination. I was completely off. And that alone, it was like something was like, wait, what is this? What am I doing? So anyway, so class finished towards the end. It's time to roll, right? And I remember Professor Carl Hollison asked me, "Okay, my friend, do you want to practice rolling today with some of the guys?" Of course, that's I would love to. That's what I'm here for. And he paired me up with one of my training partners now, who's actually one of my biggest mentors. His name is Jose. He paired me up with him, and we started rolling. And Jose, just to put it in perspective, he's like 5'7", 5'8", and he probably weighs about 50 pounds lighter than me. So when I started to fight with him, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna dominate this guy. I'm bigger, stronger than him. All I can tell you is within 30 seconds, he was choking me. And I remember me tapping, and I was like, what was that? No, let's go again. And we went again. And to make long story short, within 5 minutes, he choked me probably 4 times. And my mind could not comprehend what was going on because I was like, in theory, I should be able to bench press this guy with no problem.
Right.
But here it is choking me back and back and back. The class finished. I went to the outside. I sat on my car for 10 minutes contemplating what happened to my life because I had never been dominated in that manner in my life. And it was a very humbling experience. And ever since then, I was like, no, I need to get better at this. So it gives me this new challenge in life. So I think if I had not found jujitsu, I think I would have picked up another habits that were not as healthy as, as I'm doing now, such as drinking or even smoking, because of my daily job, because of the stress. I was constantly looking for that outlet. But luckily, I found jujitsu, and it has definitely humbled me down, and it has paved way for me to become a better person overall.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Tell me and tell our listeners about your very first competition. The very first time you said, "You know what? I think I know enough. Let me enter this competition. Let's see what this is all about." I'm dying to hear about this.
Sure. So, um, back in those years, right, in late 2015, our gym, our academy was part of Alliance Jiu-Jitsu. And Alliance Jiu-Jitsu is one of the most dominant jiu-jitsu teams in the world. They have won the world championship for I think 14, 15 times now. And they're very well known for the competition teams. So back then we were part of that competition team. And although we weren't pressured to compete, we were highly encouraged to compete at lower levels. And again, when I was playing soccer, I was very competitive. I always wanted to be the best player on the field. So when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I had the same mindset. Like, you know what? I'm here. I'm committed. I want to be the best. What's the best way to test yourself is to compete, go to competition. So it was a new breed in Miami, and I've been training 6 months then. And I had the basics down, fundamentals. I knew how to pass guard, I knew how to control guard, I knew some of the basic submissions,
Hmm.
and I thought in my mind that I had enough to compete at my level then. And my professor, my instructor agreed, and then I signed up. And we got prepared for the competition. We trained hard, and I was ready. But the day of the competition came, and the nerves. You got nervous, anxious, anxiety start kicking in all of a sudden. And although I had similar experiences with soccer, it doesn't translate to jiu-jitsu because with soccer you have your team, you have your coach, and you can kind of count on your teams, on your team players. But with jiu-jitsu, it's just you and the other guy. So the nerves, the anxiety kicked in, and I was like hyperventilating at one point. So luckily, my instructor calmed me down. He walked me through the whole process. And here we go, the first match. I remember very vividly. I stick to the plan. Right? I stick to the plan. I, I, at that point, I didn't have that many takedowns, so I pulled guard, kept the guy on my guard, and then I started attacking from there. I tried chokes. Somehow we ended up in mount. I think by him trying to stand up and me
Hmm.
trying to sweep him, we ended up in mount. I go to mount. I was trying to score more points, and we end up in side control, right? And then I got at that point 4 points. I was winning, and I stood in that position for like a minute. I just holding the guy there in side control, and I was squeezing, not doing anything, and I didn't want to lose. And I look at the clock, and we have like 2 minutes left. And my instructor's yelling me, Richard, knee on belly, choke, attack. And I'm so, desperate at that point that I go to knee on belly. The guy defends, he puts me on half guard. And I'm in half guard. I don't know much at that point between everything that's going on. I don't know what to do. So I kept trying to think, you know what, let me go to side control again or at least mount. And then at that point, you know, I don't know how, but I extended my leg. He crossed his legs under my leg. And as he pulled his leg down, blew my ACL. I
Oh.
felt a pop on my knee, right? I felt a pop. And, with adrenaline going and the crowd and everybody yelling, giving me instructions, I didn't thought much about it. Did feel funny, no pain, but it did felt a pop. And even the opponent was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I think so. Let's keep going." So with adrenaline, the match finishes. I win by points, and then I try to stand up, to go to the middle of the mat. And I remember my knee giving up. I was like, "Oh, that's not good." And I start walking, and then immediately the pain comes into my
Mm.
knee. I'm like, what is this? So the ref, raises my hand. I win my first competition ever, my first match. And then I go to my coach. I'm like, listen, I don't know what's going on, but my knee hurts and it starts getting swollen up. And then, fortunately, I have a little bit of experience with those knees because of my job
Yeah.
working with the orthopedic surgeons. So I knew there was something going on there. But with adrenaline, I didn't feel much pain. And that match was a semifinal actually because there was only four guys in my bracket that day. So I went into the finals, but my coach was excited. He's like, Richard, you need to fight again. No, man, I don't think I can. My knee's just giving up on me. I don't think I can. But they're like, no, just do your best. Stick to the game, and then just work on the bottom. And I did that. And then by that point, when I turned to do the final match, my knee was completely swollen.
Yeah.
I lost 5 points that match. But it was a overall looking in looking back in time, it was definitely a great experience. That even though yes, I hurt my knee, and then after the fact, I find out that I had torn my ACL. I ended up having surgery. For me, it was a very pivotal moment because it made me appreciate more of the mindset of jiu-jitsu, but especially life. That you could not give up with any, you know, unfortunate situations,
Right.
just like in a life, if you lose your job, if something happens, you lose somebody, a family member, you can just give up. You cannot just quit. You don't walk out on life.
Right.
And I applied the same principles back then with life, So um, luckily, I was working back then with a very good surgeon, Dr. Shapiro, and he did a phenomenal job. He fixed my knee, and I was rolling back on the mats 8 months afterwards,
Wow.
thanks to his guidance and recommendations. And when I came back, even though I had not been training for 8 months, jiu-jitsu, I wasn't rolling. I
Hmm.
started working out, lifting weights, I think 3 months after my ACL. And then I was running on a straight line 6 months afterwards. So I had good cardio, I had good strength. I just didn't have the flow, the technique. But when I came back, I think I came back more sharp mentally because I think at the beginning, jiu-jitsu, when you train almost every day, there's a lot of techniques that you learn. One day you learn a choke, the next day you're learning an armbar, and then the
Hmm.
next day you're learning a different pass. So sometimes it could get very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um, but once you let the dust settle a little bit, then you start processing and then you
Mm.
start analyzing like, oh, okay, this goes with this, and then you start making. I think that's what happened in my case. I used that time to, I was still coming to class. I wasn't actively participating, but I was observing class, and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now when I came back, I can certainly I almost felt that I never left or I never stopped training because of that.
Yeah. And,
And then after that, I came back more sharp and I was, with a different mindset now because I remember at the beginning when I started training again, I was so afraid of doing any type of takedown or any shoot for single doubles. I didn't feel comfortable doing it at
right.
all. So it forced me to learn more of my batting game,
Mm.
work off my back, work on half guard, work on guard. And that has definitely helped my game to now to this level. So
Wow. So actually, that injury, although it seemed like a bad thing at the time, actually taught you how to evolve and learn more and maybe, polish up on some of the things that you weren't so great at. Now you're doing those because you were a little bit fearful with the knee of what might happen if you move in a certain way. So that's awesome. Let me ask you this. When did the transition
sure.
take place from competitor to instructor?
So then during that time, around that time, I was able to spend more time with my daughter, and because I couldn't train as much, and she was growing up. She was 7 at that time, and I always wanted her to do jiu-jitsu, but I was, she's a girl, and back then my mindset was like, I don't want my little girl to get hurt.
Yeah.
But then we had a situation at a park one day where she was getting bullied by another girl at the play park. And to me, like, no, I need to do something about it. So she needs to learn how to defend herself. So I brought her to jiu-jitsu and she started doing class. But at the beginning, she was always more like on the girly side,
Yeah.
very delicate at the beginning.
Hmm.
So I was like, man, I don't want her to quit. I don't want her to get discouraged. So maybe if I'm in class with her, it would change her mindset. And that helped. So I talked to my instructor, my professor then, to Mr. Rollison, and I asked him, listen, can I volunteer in classes, with the kids classes? Can I help you? Just to, you tell me what to do, guide me. I had experience coaching soccer, because when I stopped playing, I volunteer at the local clubs in Miami, coaching recreational soccer for years. So I had experience coaching kids, dealing with kids. And although I didn't have the skill sets of jiu-jitsu then, I was like, look, I work under your guidance, guide me, and then I help you with the kids. So I started doing that. And then mainly every time my daughter would train, I would be on the mats with the professor coaching. And then that kind of worked out very well. We had good chemistry and things were working out. The kids were motivated. And then it was a great asset. And then a year into it, I officially became a jiu-jitsu coach with the kids then. He guided me. And then, fast forward after that, to now, I'm still a coach here. And, I love the whole journey. because it's one of those things that every time if you want to, and I tell younger guys this, that when you jiu-jitsu, you have to be, if you cannot explain a move simply and using very few words, you don't understand it very well.
Hmm.
And the best way to do that is with kids, because kids, when you're trying to teach them something, first of all, their attention span is very limited.
Exactly.
If you start using a lot of big words, a lot of technical words, you lose them. You lose them, they don't pay attention, they get motivated, and then you get frustrated because, oh, these kids don't get, they don't pay attention, they're horrible kids. No, I think it's just a matter that we as an instructor have to understand where they're coming from, because most of our kids, they're in school all day, you know, for 8 hours. Then they get home and then they come back to jiu-jitsu after being in school all day, and the teachers tell them what to do, what not to do. They get to jiu-jitsu to hear the same thing again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. They get, just like us. Even I
Mhm.
would get upset.
Right.
But when we're trying to make jiu-jitsu more interactive for them, we break it down to like a very basic, simple level. And when we're trying to explain the move, for example, passing the guard, and we explain it using very few words, very easily for them to understand, they get it. And for me as a jiu-jitsu athlete and instructor, it also helps me because if I'm able to explain a move really easy, then that means I can execute the move
Mhm.
as equally as easy.
Yep.
And especially with kids, sometimes they will ask you questions. So like, Richard, why do I put my hand here to pass the guard? And now you got to think, okay, well, I put my hand here. So, for example, if I'm passing guard and I'm pushing the knee down, well, I want to keep my hand here so he doesn't lift the knee up. So you got to be able to explain to the kids that in that way, and that the same skills that translate to adults. So as you're working with adults, you got to be able to explain things in a basic level for somebody that has never had any grappling experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I completely understand that 100%. Um, Let me say this, my background is wrestling, your background is jujitsu, very, very similar, which is why,
Yes,
in my opinion, most of the top jujitsu guys were former wrestlers. I mean, so many of the
right.
champions in the UFC and the old Bellator and whatever promotion it was were former wrestlers. So it is very, very similar. Now, when I was coaching youth wrestling, I experienced a lot of the same stuff. One of the things that I was told when it comes to coaching youth, no matter what sport it is, whether it's wrestling, soccer, jujitsu, is you have to keep it fun for them. Like that is the most
Right.
important thing with like kids age 5 through 14 or whatever it is. You got to keep it fun because jujitsu, just like wrestling, is extremely tough. It's extremely grueling. It's extremely demanding. And in order to get to a certain level, you have to be grinding for greatness. Um, how do you keep your kids focused? How do you keep it fun? Like for example, in wrestling, we would do dodgeball. If they worked hard, we would let them play dodgeball at the end of practice. Some of the parents are like, "Hey, man, this is wrestling. Why are we playing that?" Well, we got to keep it fun. So that's what we would do. Tell me a little bit about the youth and your coaching and how you keep it fun.
Well, so we're trying to keep it fun by keeping the kids constantly engaged, and we make the class interactive. Now, um, starting with you know, the beginning with the warm-ups, right? We tend to make the warm-ups, even though you get the physical component of it and the conditioning, we make it fun in terms of very interactive, and some of the exercises that we do during warm-ups, we make it like a game almost, like sometimes we sprint and we say, okay, if we can get to the line faster,
Right.
it will be, the
Like time
first choice
trials.
for dodgeball,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And then we turn it interactive, and then sometimes when the finish of the warm-up, which is usually 15-20 minutes, I do different interactive games such as green light, red light. Kids love that, right?
yeah.
They get to the end, you drink water. They come back to the mat, and then we start asking questions. Sometimes when we are about to go and move, basic things like, okay, guys, who remembers how to pass guard from guard when somebody has you closing guard? Who remembers that? Now the kids start thinking, they start being interactive, and now that gets their mind going, And they're like, oh, okay, I can relate to that versus me just saying, okay, guys, this is what we're gonna do. No questions asked right now. Just pay attention. Yeah, I mean, if we do that, sometimes I think we lose the attention of the kids. So by keeping it interactive, keeps the kids constantly engaged, and also we ask questions. We show them move a few times, and then and they know this at this point that we asking questions. So if I ask Timmy, what is the first thing Tommy needs to do first? He needs to be able to tell Tommy, okay, Tommy, you need to put your hands on the stomach, frame, push the knee down. But by keeping it interactive, they get constantly engaged, and we don't lose them as much.
Yeah.
So we do that too, and then as we start wrestling, before we start, I'm sorry, start rolling or grinding with each other, uh, we do a series of game two to help the kids with the coordination and with the stand-up games, such as King of the Mat, right? Whoever takes each other down wins,
Yeah.
right? So it's a fun game for them, and they're trying to go there. Sometimes we play different games, so we call it a single leg pickup. The moment you lift the opponent's leg, you win.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep it fun. So every day we change things around. So it's not the same repetitive,
Uh,
you know, process every single class. By doing that, it keeps the kids interactive and fun for them. They have fun, yet they learn. And the one part where we do, because again, after all, it's jujitsu, where we are a little bit more firm, a little bit tough on them is the rolling part, when we coaching them. That's when we're a little bit more firm, more rigid with that because they need to endure that. They need to endure like you said, they need to grind for greatness. They just cannot, because they got mounted, that doesn't mean it's over. No, you have to get out of that. You have to
right.
fight for that. You can't just give up. You can't just quit on yourself and then, let the guys to meet you or stay there. No, you need to fight. And that's the one part where they understand that, okay, the other parts, okay, it's learning. This is me. I need to listen to my coach. I got to be able to listen. I got to be able to follow directions. And then usually once, twice a week at the end of class, if they do a good job, they train hard. At the end, we do something similar like you did, which is dodgeball,
Right.
or sometimes we do other interactive games. So by doing this, it helps our kids stay focused, they have fun, because a lot of the times, again, we we tend to lose the youth and the kids. Not so much what happens in the mat, but the way home, right? When they're with their parents.
Ah,
They're like, Mom,
great
I got,
point.
choked 20 times today. I don't feel good. I don't like that place. The coach is mean to me. All they do is yell at me. I'm not having fun there. And I don't blame him from that perspective.
Right.
Uh, but, when the kids understand, like, okay, well, yes, this is jujitsu. I am, learning how to protect myself. I'm learning a skill set that I'm going to use in life. And the parents see that together, they can guide them through that process. And I think by doing all those little things, we've been able to, keep our kids constantly engaged and parents too together.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, you know, when I was coaching my own kids and other kids, uh, obviously a big part of it is the training and the practicing and getting as good as you can get. And the other part is competition day. When you're
Mm.
coaching a kid and that kid goes out there and he competes at his highest level and it just doesn't work out and that kid loses the fight or the match or whatever it's called, how important is a loss? Like, how valuable is a loss? And I'm going to explain why I'm asking that question, but I want to hear your answer first. When a kid loses, do you look at that as a good thing, as a bad thing? What is that to you? How important is a loss, and what does it mean?
Well, to me, a loss is part of the process,
Yeah.
right? And it's like a big quote from Carlos Gracie Sr. It says that you don't lose in jiu-jitsu, you learn. And when you apply those principles, it translates to other sports and other disciplines, right? Just like in soccer, right? Um, if you lose a match, and that I started experiencing that when I was playing soccer more often. You know, a match is just a way for you to react and analyze yourself. Okay, why do we lose? Okay, we stopped doing something. I need to better this. I need to better that. When you translate it to youth soccer, it's the same thing. Some of the kids don't understand why they lose. They're like, "Oh man, but I hate losing." Yes, everybody, nobody likes losing. I think everybody agrees with that. But it's what are you going to do about it? So when we bring it back to jiu-jitsu, it's the same thing. For example, this about 2 weeks ago, we had a tournament at Newbury, Miami, and one of my most talented kids was dominating the match. He was controlling the kid. He was out by, I think, 8 points. And it was a minute and a half left. And he dominated. And he was so confident of his skill set that he relaxed a little bit. He left his guard down. So the opponent locked him into a triangle. And, he wasn't close to being in trouble, but, the other kid that was losing by point was getting close to, locking the triangle. So our kid lost his concentration, lost his focus, and what he ended up doing is he ended up standing up and landed into his knee, so pretty much slamming the kid, right? So the coach stopped the match, the ref, I'm sorry, stopped the match, and then he disqualified DQ our kid for slamming. So the kid at that point, he was distraught. He was like, why do I lose? Just because I slammed the kid, I was winning by points. I was dominated. I was in no problem, ever danger. I didn't feel in danger. And the parents too. They're like, Richard, what's going on? He was winning. Well, you slamming, that's it, that's deuce. And, after the fact, explain to the parents and the kids, listen, just like in life, in jiu-jitsu, you need to be aware of what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. You need to understand the rule set and you need to follow directions, just
Hmm.
like in life, right? And the moment you fail or you don't do something that you're supposed to do, that's when you could get in trouble.
Hmm.
So learning in this case from my kid was a very humbling experience that just because you're dominating someone doesn't mean that you can just keep your guard down. You have to get constantly engaged.
Right.
And as a parent, they were able to understand, oh, okay, well, now I need to guide my kid to constantly stay focused from beginning to the end the whole time. So, and I think, back to your question, I think losing it certainly builds character. It builds confidence on somebody, on everybody, because if you don't ever put yourself in those situations where you don't want to get out of your comfort zone, then you're going to be limiting your growth.
Hmm.
And then you're not going to be growing professionally, athletically, and you're always going to be doing the same thing. And then just because you don't want to challenge yourself. So, in me in particular, when I started competing, I know that I was never the most athletic or the strongest or the fastest guy, but I was somewhere in the middle of all of this. So, the best way for me to understand is when I get put in when I get submitted in a competition, I analyze that and I'm like, this guy got me in a triangle. Let me review all my videos and I'm gonna train to fix that.
Hmm.
So we're now, yes, I'm a white belt journey, blue belt journey. I got submitted a lot of times, but I think the last time I got submitted was probably mid purple, and my whole brown, late purple, I haven't got submitted because of that mindset. That you get submitted, you fix it. You lose by points, you fix it, and you constantly
Hmm.
fix it. That had I not done that, had I not put myself in that situation, I think I would have been very limited on my
Yeah.
growth and where I am now. Because otherwise, if you don't challenge, if you don't strive for more, then you're just gonna be in a very secluded area, and you're not gonna grow on that end.
Yeah. I always knew that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and wrestling were very, very similar as far as the training, the mindset, everything that goes into both of them. But I never really realized how similar it really is because everything you're
Hmm.
saying relates right back to my sport, to wrestling. And I tell
Right,
people all the time there's no losing. You either win or you
right,
learn. And that's what it comes down to. If you
right.
can walk away from a loss but learn something from it, that loss may be more valuable than some of your wins. Do you
Hmm.
agree with that?
Oh, I certainly agree with that. And even with training, right? I tell the younger guys and the new guys, right? I'm like, listen, if you're in a room where you're not getting choked, you're not getting submitted, constantly, that may not be a room where you want to be constantly,
Right.
right? Why? Because you want to be in a place where you constantly get pushed to the breaking point,
Hmm.
physically, mentally. You don't want to get comfortable. You always want to strive for more and strive for greatness. Otherwise, yes, can you go through life by being just average? Sure, certainly, and this is a very legitimate mindset. But if you want to be the best at what you do, I'm not talking about I'm going to be the best in the world, but I want to be the best version of myself.
Hmm.
I constantly want to get out of my comfort zone. I want to be a little bit better than I was last time. And if I get submitted, why did I get submitted? And when you must have the ability to be tough on yourself and criticize yourself harder than anyone. And that comes by being very objective, leaving the excuses behind. Oh no, he choked me because he was bigger than me, or he was twice my size, or he was fastest. No, to an extent that might be a factor, but the the overall, objective opinion on that is you got submitted because you did something that you weren't supposed to do, or you didn't defend, or your timing was off, or during the whole process, there was something that you didn't recognize.
Right.
But when you analyze yourself, when you criticize yourself on that end, you're like, yes, mm, he got me because instead of me escaping, I used my hands on his chest. That's why he gave my arms. And not because he's bigger or stronger than me, because he doesn't, translate very well on that. But overall, having the ability, and that's why when we tell the younger guys and the newer athletes, is you need to have no ego. The moment you step in the mat, leave your ego outside the mat.
Yeah.
Be humble, keeping your mind open, and ask questions, because again, we are creatures of habit, but we learn at different speeds, different ways to learn. Some people learn by doing it, some people learn by observing, some people have to read, some people do learn by, different, by putting them all together. And if I judge or I compare myself to my training partner, and I said, man, how come this guy can finish the arm bars and I'm having such a hard time? Sometimes again, you ego, you have to be humble. Say, you know what? Good for him that he could do this. Let me focus on me. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm not following the directions, or I'm not doing this, or I'm skipping this one step. And that's why, in the sense, jiu-jitsu is very humbling on that end. The mats don't lie. I'm sure the Western the same.
Yeah.
You get what you put into it. If you don't put in the work, then it's not going to show. And it's not going to be, oh, because I was tired. Oh, because my
Right.
coach didn't taught me this. Oh, because my training partner was resisting or doing this. Irrelevant. At the end, is did you put in the work? Yes, it's going to show.
Yeah.
If you're not doing the work, then, it's not going to be there.
Exactly. There's levels to this. There's levels to everything in life, and
Yeah.
I tell people all the time. I've been asked many times, how do I get my kid to be as good as your kid was? Your kid won everything. He did
Mhm.
this, he did that, he was all this, he was all that. I'm like, it's real simple. Work hard, man. Work hard. That's it.
Work
And
hard.
I've been told, oh, my kid works hard and he kills everybody in the room. And well, that's the problem. That's the problem. I tell people all the
Mhm.
time, if you want your kid to be at the elite level, you got to be in a room where he can train with one kid that he destroys, one kid that he's about even with, and one kid that beats his ass. If you can have
Mhm.
those three kids in that training room with your son or daughter, they'll get to the next level. And I really believe that because I've watched it so many times. If you're going into a room and you're destroying everybody, you're not going to get any better, right? You're just going to stay the same. But when you go into a room and you roll with a guy where you're like, oh shit, I really got to give him everything I got just to hang with him, you're going to get a little better. And then when you're rolling with that guy that he's just destroying you, I think that's the ingredients that's missing from a lot of these kids. They're not getting the proper
Right.
work. But anyways, we've been talking almost 45 minutes. I want to thank you for coming on. Number one, number two. I want to give you this opportunity to throw a plug in for your dojo there. Where can people get a hold of you? How can they find Carlos Holison Jiu Jitsu?
Yeah, so we are in Hollywood, Florida, right? We are very welcome opening gym. Our academy's name is Carlos Rolison Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can find us on social media at Rolison BJJ. Also, Instagram, Facebook, all mainly social media. And Google Maps, you can always find us there. We're very welcoming. We have 5 classes for free. You can come and train. In addition to jiu-jitsu, we also have a gym equipment that you can do workout classes. We have striking classes Mondays and Fridays. So striking, MMA, we do this too. And now we just recently partnered up with Ray Lugo. I don't know if you're familiar
I
with
know
Lugo
Ray.
from Lugo Wrestling Club. He's now in our gym actually. So he
That's
brought
awesome.
his wrestling club here out of our gym, believe it or not, Monday through Sunday. So if you're interested in wrestling, and you live in the area, it's a great way to stop by. But when we put it all together, we're coming up with this very strong team, group of athletes that we have everything under one building, jiu-jitsu, striking, MMA, gym equipment, wrestling now with Ray Lugo,
Love it.
and we're just looking forward to, so everyone's welcome to stop by. Our open mats are Friday nights, so if you just want to come in and roll, you can stop by Friday nights. Other than that, most of our information should be in social media or our website.
Awesome. That's awesome. Richard, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy as I am. So I got a lot of stuff I got to get going to do today. I'm sure you do as well. But I'll see you soon next time I come down. Actually, I'll see you if you're going to be in the office next Thursday. Are you in the Hollywood office next Thursday?
Oh, yeah, I'll be there. I'll see
I'll
you
see
Thursday.
you. We'll
Pleasure,
definitely.
got it, Ricky.
Yeah, man. I'll
Thank
see
you
you
for the
Thursday.
opportunity.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.